Chinese friend of mine with whom I had dinner told me there are going to be 1,200 new museums built in the next 5 years. Probably 600 public museums and the rest private museums. China works differently from the West. It builds something and then it develops the appetite. And I think that's what's happening. I think the appetite for Chinese art and for art in general is growing. So at the moment, there is a Japanese group called Team Lab at Pace in Beijing as we speak in the summer of 2017, and 200,000 people have been to see this exhibition. In Wang Wei's museum in Shanghai, there's been a big exhibition of the American artist James Turrell, and there have been queues around the block for that. I think we're only just beginning to understand the appetite for contemporary art and culture in China. Between 1998, when I first came to do an exhibition, and in 1999 I did an exhibition of Chinese art in London, and nobody came. Nobody came at all, even though they were important Chinese artists. Over that period, I've watched as the art world has grown. So 798 Chuseou Bar is a place that in 2002, there were a few people looking like me walked around. And now on a Saturday afternoon, it's full of young Chinese hand in hand, as it were, having a good day out. And art both has become very important in the galleries, it's become very important in the museums, and in one way, I think what's most important is China has invented an art world over the last 30 years. Critics, museums, galleries, the market. Artists have always been here, but they haven't had a place to show. So the extraordinary thing that's happened over the last 20 years is that art world has grown, stabilized, and everybody now recognizes it's not finished, but it's serious. I have a deep love of the Chinese provincial cities, of the second and third tier cities. So we have been to Wuhan, we have been to Guangzhou, we have been to Nanjing. The issue at the moment is it is complicated because works that enter China have to leave within 6 months. These are customs regulations, which are very complex. If I was starting over in China now as a foreigner, I would skip Beijing and Shanghai. I think it's overrun by Americans and Germans and French and English. And I would go to Chengdu, I would go to Shenzhen, which I think is probably at the moment the most interesting and important city in China. Or Wuhan. When Sean came to Wuhan, we had a dinner and they brought 110 people to the dinner. I mean, there are major cities that large numbers of foreigners do not know, and they're very, very interesting places. I'm sure CAFA would like to murder me on occasions. I mean, you know, CAFA remains for me the most important museum and the most important institution in China. One of the things I like about it is there are certain Chinese museums that only want brand names, the art equivalent of a Louis Vuitton handbag. One of the things I like about CAFA is it's really interested in good art, what Chinese people called an art master and not simply an art star. So when we brought Sean here, not a lot of people knew Sean. But I remember taking the artist Xu Bing around the show, and he said, this is a very important show, Philip. He said, this could change the way Chinese young artists paint. And Wang Chongchen, who is here at CAFA, I remember at the press conference said he thought this show could be as important in China as Robert Rauschenberg's work that was shown here in the mid-80s. So there are ways, if you, as a foreigner, if you come here, choose the right institution, the right time, come here humbly, not we know everything, like too many British people do. But we come here to learn, and we want to collaborate with you. The first would be to find the right partner in China. It's really easy to find a partner in China. It's really hard to find the right partner. Listen to them. Don't simply talk to them. So that's the second. They know China much better than you do, and what you think will work in China may not work in China. The aesthetics of China are very different. So a lot of our friends like Sean Scully's works on paper more than the works on canvas, because paper and pastel matter a great deal in the history of China. So listen, find the right partner. Don't only think of Beijing and Shanghai. I think that's the fourth commandment. I think the fifth commandment is to know that Chinese museums on the whole do not have a lot of money. So don't expect them to simply work in the way Western museums do. So, you beg, borrow and steal. In other words, you find bits of money here. So CAFA has always been generous within what it can do, but it can't do everything. So I think that's the fifth commandment. I think the sixth commandment is know something about Chinese culture. China has moved beyond, oh wow, this is coming from the West, it's wonderful. I think it's got much more critical, in a good sense, much tougher in its judgments. And that in my view, is good. I think in the early part of this century, I think it spent too much time going, oh, I'm really grateful for this, and I'm glad to say it stopped that. So, understand that you'll have to engage in proper, critical conversation. You can't come here once or twice. China's used to that. In fact, a Chinese friend of mine said, the problem with too many foreigners, they think there's a hole in one in China. They think they can come here and succeed. And I've watched a lot of artists come here, fly in the day before the opening, bask in all the glory and leave. And their exhibitions or their events don't leave a trace. Sean Scully came 6 months before. He went to give lectures in Hangzhou and here at CAFA. He did lots of media. He and I talked a lot about Chinese culture. So those are the things. Just be respectful. It's really simple.